This is WBAL-TV Channel 11, Baltimore, Maryland. It's 5:30.
From WBAL-TV, Baltimore, Maryland's most complete news report with Dick Gelfman and Edie House, sports with Chris Thomas, and meteorologist Billy Taylor with weather. This is News 11.
Good evening, everybody, on this Friday, September 19th, 1986. I'm Peter Wiggins. Today is what's happening on News 11 at 5:30. Top story at 5:30 is in Annapolis, where it faces a court battle that the city requires random drug tests for employees. The state director of the American Civil Liberties Union said yesterday, once there is a program into place to look at it, we're ready to go into court on the thing, said Stuart Comstock-Gay, director of the Maryland ACLU chapter. The warning comes amid continuing reaction to the announcement earlier this week that the city is considering drug testing for police, firefighters, and some public transportation employees. The city is one of the first in the nation to consider a random drug testing for its employees, said a spokesman for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. On a problem of random drug testing program will be violated the Fourth Amendment in the United States Constitution, which protects it against unreasonable search and seizure. Comstock-Gay said it's a search of a person's body. In fact, and you're doing it without probable cause of believing that the person has violated any laws. He said to file a lawsuit, the Civil Liberties Union would have to report a city employee who refused to take the test. Comstock-Gay said lawsuit by the ACLU would not be a surprise, but the city intends to respect the constitutional rights with any program we're seeing it. Mayor Dennis Callahan said, noted that President Reagan plans to implement a similar program using urine tests for up to 1.1 million federal employees. Callahan said the city will be followed federal drug tests. And also, the quickening movement toward a broader drug screening for government employees could invite the backlash of legal and political opinion. County and state officials warn. News 11's Dick Gelfman has a report. In legal research speculated by the county executive attorneys for Annandale County, he cautioned that the random drug test will leave the county upon its civil rights lawsuits by employees. And it states top drug prevention experts in public opinion toward a random universal test, maybe new ones that will probably learn how the test could work. It isn't like going to your doctor's office and standing behind a curtain. The person should be actively watched. At Howard Silverman, acting director of the Maryland Drug Abuse Administration. We're fairly degraded and embarrassing, and the man in her mouth and it doors correctly. Although workers in the private industry have definitely provided that random drug tests and evasion of privacy, government employees have won court challenges in a growing number of cases nationwide because they work for the government. Public employees can invoke the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which protects others, citizens from government search and seizure that is unreasonable or not based on suspicion. Mayor Dennis Callahan this weekend announced a proposal to require a test for police, firemen, said city and bus drivers, but county officials said they will instead proceed with random tests unless a Maryland court rules on the question. We think that the only effective program is a rare navigation. Dick Gelfman, News 11 in Annapolis. A rare navigational artifact apparently stolen on loan to St. John's College in 1961 also seems to be vanished from memories and school records. The artifact, which called a commemorative and belonged to Chicago's Adler Planetarium, and may be worth as much as $30,000. Woody Miller has a report. It wasn't used by 16th century travelers to tell the time and determine the location of planetarium. Spokeswoman Sandra Thompson said in 1961 the device was loaned to the St. John's. Mrs. Thurston said, but disappeared before it could be returned. The records so that it did not give the name of the person of St. John's who borrowed it. July 9th, 1961. On July 9th, 1961, an Union Capital reported that the sundial was found about $4,000 when stolen, was discovered missing. When a representative of the planetarium came to pick up the 39-piece exhibit from the college. The artifacts were kept in a glass cabinet in the Francis Scott Key Memorial Hall. The cabinet was closed with some screws and metal clips, according to the newspaper account. At least part of a disappearance was explained recently when a planetarium curator located and accompanied by a June catalog from the New York office of Christie's London-based auction house. It was for sale during a December auction, Christie's spokeswoman Amanda Jenkins said. Civil St. John's administrators said from 6-1 said that last week they could not recall the theft. President Emeritus Richard T. Weigel said he did not remember having a condominium on campus, nor did he recall anything on loan from a museum being stolen. Miriam Scrange, former register and a Chavez faculty member, J. Winfrey Smith, offered a book about the college, and former librarian Charles Fletcher that they never heard the mining artifact, nor did they remember the college of an exhibit. Kathleen Kinzer, president librarian, said that Mrs. Strange, the former librarian, had not heard of the incident. Definitely is well kept secret. That's sensational enough that I should have heard about it. Mrs. Kinzer said she found nothing on her shelves that night. Tell her what happened. Maybe it was an embarrassment, she said. This might be something that was kept totally secret. Assistant Dean Barbara Leonard said that she'd done so. Remember exhibiting the disappearance of an artifact. Miss Leonard said he talked with several other people who were on campus at the time that found no classes. City police could not find the report from 1961 and apparently was purged in accordance with Department of Regulations about old files. Robert Burns said, half a woman whose name Jen cannot remember was also added from the report in the past 2 months, she said. The stock market's historic plunge of 130 points in 2 days last week raises some fears of economic war and flags, local analysts say, for consumers. Signs of higher interest rates on continuing the market and volatility mean that little near the future. But such signals have clear significance for investors and the economy in a whole. In the long run, analysts said the Dow Jones average of 10 industrial stocks fell. America set in its 60 points last Thursday and slid another 34 points, Friday the heaviest trade ever. Stock prices have not dropped so far, sold last far on a percentage basis since 1967. This week, however, the market seesawed. It dropped 8 points on Monday and 12 points on Tuesday. That's dropping 9 points on Wednesday and 4 points yesterday. I usually take a week or two to think of something like this. That Ted Reynolds, an investment broker at the Baker Wallet and Company in Baltimore. Brokers started work cautiously today. One minute there was a meeting. So-called triple witch an hour. When stock options, stock index opinions, and stock index exposed simultaneously, their event leads to dramatic market savings. Local stocks suffered last week as much as others then recovered uncertainly this week. For instance, P&G stock fell 33 and a quarter last Wednesday to 31 at last Friday's close by. Yesterday was up to 32%. Area bank stocks continue to struggle. Citicorp has fallen 53 and a quarter percent to 51 in the 7 days. Maryland National Bank, Baltimore Bancorp, and Chase Manhattan Mercantile Bank shares and Equitable Bancorp all took heavy losses last weekend. Founded this week, this slide is the bank next undertones in the clear economic message of our consumers that analysts could disown their last week's market activity watch for higher interest rates in 6 months, said Mike Goldman, the vice president of Ferris & Company in Washington, D.C. investment services firm. In average, Grace, Maryland, police arrested a man in the shootings of 4 policemen. 2 of them went critically after an all-night search by more than 108 officers. The police had set up roadblocks and gone house to house in Havre Grace in search of the gunman. They advised residents not to leave their homes unless absolutely necessary, and to keep their windows and doors locked. They also urged their commuters and stay out clear of the town. Schools here were to open 2 hours late, and morning kindergarten classes were canceled, school officials announced. State police have found a man as 27-year-old Frank Green of Far Rocky, New York, who had counted in a parking garage across from Hartford Memorial Hospital. Shots were fired in an arrest as police carried Green in the hospital. He shouted, "I didn't do nothing! They shot me for nothing!" State Police Superintendent Colonel George Brosnan and hospital officials said Green suffered a scratch on the leg was not shot. He was released under custody of police after being treated. A handgun was recovered from the bushes spot which Green had run. Brosnan said he was not sure what charges would be lodged against the subject. We have to check with the state's attorney. Obviously, he assailed 4 police officers. A woman who lived in a house near where Green was apprehended said she heard the shots and cut down on the floor. "I was very scared," said Barbara Williams. State police spokesman Chuck Jackson said Green had stolen the pickup truck earlier in the evening and later broke into her house to steal the keys to the car, which eventually crashed. The student unions of the police officers began about 3:30 p.m. on Thursday. They checked down an unoccupied van with a Pennsylvania license plate along US 40 near the Susquehanna River Bridge and learned was stolen. A town police officer and a Harford County Sheriff's deputy were the first to arrive in the van, said Brosnan, a bridge police officer, then pulled up, saw a person crossing a median strip, and went to give them a ride back to the van. Brosnan said police hadn't believed that the man picked up had been driving in the van. The officers next to the van then saw the cruiser carrying the pedestrian and ran off to the road and crashed, firemen said. The passenger in the cruiser opened fire to the 10 policemen and sheriff's deputies when they were arrived to help. Police said. Officer Dennis Rittenauer, 30 shot in the head, and sheriff's deputy Stephen Wagner was hit in the elbow, police said. Official Robert Powell, 54, was driving a car that crashed, was shot beyond the right ear by his passenger, according to Tom Ferberger, spokesman of the Toll Facilities Police. Piles and Rittenauer are listening in quick condition today at the Shock Trauma Center at University Hospital in Baltimore. Wagner was reported in a fair condition at Hartford Memorial Hospital in Havre de Grace. The fourth injured officer, Charles Briggs, in his 20s, was shot when he came face to face with a subject behind a nearby restaurant. Brown said he was reported in self-accident condition and shock trauma. 90 officers fired shots, said Brosnan Wood could provide no other details. Danny Trestle, 18 of Perrysville, will help police put the flares around the disabled van, was also joined them in trying to help the driver of the cruiser. Said he heard the suspect yell from the backseat, "Let me out of here!"
ABC News, New York.
Baltimore, the Farm Credit Bank of Baltimore has solvent it up to June 16 and expects to stay in the backlog despite dipping into surplus funds to help other districts, and bank official says. The projected losses in the farm credit system are inflated and won't affect farmers who have loans throughout the Baltimore district, said William Collins, a spokesman for the district, which includes Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, West Virginia, and Puerto Rico. The GAO on Wednesday reported that the farm credit system would have asked for a bailout from Congress a year earlier than projected. The system's problem loans grew to $12.3 billion this year, and operation and losses would in total about $2.9 billion. Higher than the system's own estimates of $1.7 billion, according to the GAO. That would leave the national system only about $300,000 in surplus funds from its $3.2 billion fund this year, roughly 1 penny for every $100. We cannot be certain about the press asked at the time when the system surplus will be effectively exhausted. William J. Anderson, as Assistant Comptroller General, in testimony Thursday before the House Agriculture Credit Subcommittee. Analysts include that this could happen in early 1987. Unofficial were projected by the system modified surplus. Maybe the substance carries the system until 1988, he said. The exact time at which the system surplus will be exhausted is not so important as the availability of the event. Collins said that the Baltimore district will be able to handle the extra expense of lending money. Today, other districts we will be able to maintain the loans we've been making, said. The Baltimore district has $2.9 billion in loans. Collins said it has been providing extra money to districts in Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and Mississippi. He said the system is the nation's largest farm leader and a network of cooperative farmer-owned banks that make farm mortgage and short-term operating loans, and its financial condition has now closely been tracked to the health of the nation's farm economy. Farm credit loan portfolio has shrunken considerably as debt-burdened farmers have scrambled to pay off whatever their loans they can. 1984, the system had $82 billion in continuing outstanding loans by the end of this year. GAO estimated to hold about $64 billion. The share of the farm lending market has dropped from 34% to about 28%.
And you could still get 50% off.
Baltimore U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has launched its ban on hunting the canvasback ducks every year because the number of the birds in the country is below minimum standards. Craig Reboas, Secret Service from the Wildlife Service in Washington, said that the limit, the new 1967 service framework permitted hunting in 3 of the 4 major bird byways in eastern, Mississippi, and central. He said the number of the birds used in the 3.5 was $303,000 in 1986, below the $300,000 minimum required by the service. Basically, it's something that we can schedule a management tool. He said the biggest problem we have had in the habitat problems, loss of wetlands, and the weather plays a singular part in the net production. He said hunters brought down 70,000 of the large red-handed canvas back to 1985, and in general, you'll find hunters are pretty willing to help. He said they know hunting in the management tool. Raymond said that the service framework, which was released last week, goes to the state conservation departments and approval. He said the states are free to impose the stricter limits but cannot loosen the federal standards. Canvasback ducks had numbered at about 88,000 in 1980 and have steadily declined in the population since then, Robin said. Baltimore Republican gubernatorial candidate Thomas J. Mooney yesterday challenged his opponent, Democratic William Donald Sheriff, for the Baltimore mayor to do debate for money with proceeds going towards textbooks to Baltimore City schools. Mooney has asked for the businesses and citizens to pledge a small amount of money per reward during a debate between the two candidates. The mayor has the city cares about education in the city. If he cares about the city about education, he will come forward in the debate. Mooney, a 2-term state delegate from Prince George's County, and others about 6,000 awards during the debate. According to this research, Schaefer's campaign manager, Mark Wasserman, said the mayor would not debate.
Welcome back. In a candid interview with an Italian...
In news around the state, Baltimore poisonous wild mushrooms are responsible for making 16 people ill in the Baltimore, Washington area in the past few weeks, that's what he said. In 14 cases, the mushrooms were notified by Amativirus, according to Dr. Gary O'Dea, director of the Maryland Poison Center. The remaining 2 patients also had symptoms of ambulatory poisoning, and O'Dea said those symptoms include vomiting and profusion. Watery diarrhea began more than 10 hours after consuming the mushrooms. Severe liver and kidney damage can fall. In some cases, it takes only one Amanita mushroom to cause death, said Dr. Toby Lidovitz, director of the National Capital Poison Center in Washington. There's no antidote, she said. Baltimore, each Maryland customer of Chesapeake and Potomac Telephone Company will be refunded $6.56 or a plan jointly announced by the Company, State Public Service Commission, and the Office of People Counsel. The refund will be about the $13.6 million and approved by the PSC. The plan also includes that the accounting change would be reduced in CNP's rate base, resulting in added changes in the company of $33 million this year. The company announcement said the charge will be amounted to $73 million over the next 2 years, according to the Office of People's Counsel. People's Counsel John M. Clinton said that the agreement will save telephone customers about $15 to $30 in the next 2 years. In Upper Marlboro, Prince George's County State Attorney Alfred Marshall said to Thursday that he's going to give up his fight to be re-elected county commissioner. He's doing through the support beyond David Simpson, his assistant, who won the Republican nomination for state attorney. After 24 years on the job, Marshall lost the Democrat primary to challenger Alexander Williams, a professor at Harvard University Law School and president of the Washington Superintendent Commission. Marshall charged that Williams lacks career experience. He also said that Williams was endorsed by Representative Stoney Holder. Matthew, I'm in Millicent, okay? Matthew, I'm in Millicent, okay? I'm in Millicent, okay? I had chicken. Bye-bye, Matthew, bye. Matthew, I'm in Millicent, okay? County Executive Paris Glendon will be independent enough as prosecutor. Frederick, water restrictions in the city of Frederick have been in effect for 7 weeks, and 2 other Frederick County communities have asked their residents to conserve water. Mansville officials imposed water use restrictions on Wednesday to alert residents of water supply shortages, while Thurmont residents have been notified that water restrictions will go into effect today. In Mansville, with a population of about 500 mountain springs that feed in the town's water supply and providing less water than normal for this time of the year, said Councilman Dick Karp. With 3,300 people is drawn water from the 2 wells, but the water level in one of the wells has been fallen, said Mayor James Black. Water from the Thurmont wells also comes from mountain streams.
Normal days overall. Here's where we are right now, down to 67 at the Logan.
Michaela Skopchev rebuffed personal insurances from President Reagan and a detained American journalist was not an American spy. The Soviet leader, in his first public comments on this case, said that the journalist Nicholas S. Stenilov was a spy caught red-handed whose detention was being used by Washington to weep harvest with hatred against Moscow. 25 members of the Soviet mission to the United Nations who must leave October 1st as senior intelligence officers. Reagan administration officials said they all said that also 25 would severely hurt what they called the Kremlin's most important espionage post in its country. The U.S. is ready to accept the Soviet proposal that only a token missile force to be kept in Europe under an agreement on medium-range weapons. Administration officials have told the Kremlin a gunman killed a French official in Beirut. The assassin shot Colonel Christian Gauthier, the French military attaché in Lebanon, 3 times in the head at point-blank range and escaped in a waiting car. France will respond forcefully to the wave of terrorist bombings in Paris, Prime Minister Jacques Chirac promised. However, French officials agreed they had little hard information about the terrorists who might be sponsoring them. U.S. prosecutors will have access to previous sacred bank records of drug traffickers who laundered money in a chain of Eastern Caribbean islands under the new agreement, the accord with the Turks and Caicos Islands. Without federal government, prosecutors see financial records in the British colony. William Rehnquist smiled and said at a brief news conference he was looking forward to the future and to trying to be a good Chief Justice. At 6-5-33 Senate confirmation vote made Justice Rehnquist the first nominee for the Chief Justice in more than 50 years to be approved by a vote of ratio less than 2-1 in 1836. The Senate confirmed Roger B. Taney as Chief Justice by a vote of 29 and 15. The confirmation battle over Justice Rehnquist may help set the rules for consideration of future Supreme Court nominations. By the end of the process, the inquiry into the adultery has become part of a Senate debate and settle on whether Justice Rehnquist is able to serve as a symbol of justice. A lawsuit by 7 Northeastern states seeking to cut air pollution coming from the Middle West was dismissed by the Federal Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. The dismissal was ordered by the judges Antoine Scalia, Abner Mikva, and J. Kelly White.
Yet another top 10 day with bright sunshine, about 72 for the short.
U.S. Air Auto airbag rule will probably never be rescinded because many state laws requiring seatbelt use fail to meet federal criteria for dropping the rule. A federal appeals panel held. Humor in the presidency is the focus on a symposium sponsored by former President Gerald R. Ford on the 5th anniversary of his museum's opening in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Edward Bennett Williams, a prominent lawyer, defined politics as the general art of getting votes from the poor and money and the rich by promising to protect each other from the other. Okay, sports time. Vince Bagley. Take it away, Vince. Okay, thank you, Peter. Tonight, the Orioles will be in Memorial Stadium tonight, taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Scott Dixon, man, for the Orioles, while Teddy Gurman for them.
In the middle portion of the
for the Brewers.
Before that, after that.
Approaching his second retirement as manager of the Baltimore Orioles, Earl Weaver became more of a newsmaker when he played than when he was working in the leagues. Came 5 in the Yankees chain of command, and the fact that the permanent link George Steinbrenner personally contained Weaver's name, even though Lou Pennell hasn't been fired. A question from never been put to me about the owner of the New York Yankees. For one reason, he's going to be called Mr. Williams, as the Orioles owner Edward Bennett Williams first. Why should I worry about what he does? The catch, besides Weaver's honest desire to raise tomatoes and play golf for a living, is that he has a $1 per year contract to the Orioles and through 1992. Keep me for managing my other club. Mr. Williams so far, he desires Weaver returned to the Orioles on June 14, 1985 after 2 years, 3 months in his first retirement. He finished the season with a 59-53 record at the club, close to first place in the American League East last month. Before it collapsed on August 5th, the Orioles were 2.5 games beyond the division leading Boston Red Sox. They lost 39 games, and they're currently on 6th place, just ahead in Milwaukee with a 69-67 record. This is the first time since 1967 the Orioles have been under 500 in September, and the club has not finished less since division play began in 1969. It feels terrible, but it's acceptable. While the fire may have died somewhat, that has been returned. I want to come back this year. The desire was strong. I had much fire as anyone could have. When the season started, I wanted to win 95 games. My feelings are that I let everybody down, but that's the way it is. Weaver says he decided in August that he wanted to quit. We got 4 or 5 back, and then he asked me what I want to do. I said I didn't want to come back. I'm glad it's all open now.
Study authors say labeling confuses consumers. Why? Systems aimed at helping shoppers understand freshness, not safety, leading many to throw out food before it actually goes bad.
Washington University of Maryland football coach Barbara Ross may decide to make this last season out of the Terrapins because of the changes expected at the university as a result of the cocaine-induced death of basketball player Len Bias, according to a published report. 3 university officials say they do not expect Ross back in '87, according to yesterday's edition of the Washington Post. He's been pretty frustrated by the whole thing, said the Post, quoted in an unidentified source in the internet, saying, according to the source, West is frustrated by the policy and the belief that the university is not standing up for the program. A Chancellor John B. Slaughter accepts the task force accepted recommending forbidden admission of any athlete who fails to meet the standards in the NCAA Proposition 40. Ross's 4-year contract will be breached, as source told the Post. The contract includes commitment by the University of the Ross area by admission of stadium improvements.
In the bag, keys, cell phones, makeup containers.
Harvard Rose told the Post, I'm just not even thinking about even things like that. That's so far from my mind right now. I'm just locked into the season, but I have no difficulty with Proposition 48 in principle at all. Proposition 48 sets exempt academic requirements for athletes. The university now allows certain exceptions. A task force currently is studying possible changes that the university athletic players program overall. The task force was formed and was discovered it was resident. Failed most of the opportunities and final surrender to play. Its recommendation is expected later this month. And Anaheim, the Los Angeles Rams, who have been little success with the Asian quarterbacks they've signed in recent years, yesterday acquired the rights to a promising young quarterback by the name of Jim Everett, the rookie. They paid a steep price for the acquisition of rights to Everett, the former Purdue San, who has been a contract holdout in Houston Oilers this season. Los Angeles gave the Orioles Pro Bowl Kent Hill at Rams' first picks in the draft in the next 2 years. The 95 pick in 87 plus defensive end Willem Fulf for Everett, the 3rd place selected in 86 college draft in the NFL. We had to pay a healthy price, but we feel like worth it. You look ahead to the next 5 years. The big stumbling block for the Rams was a quality quarterback. Coach John Rustin said, Steve broadcasted David Brock and Steve Dills for the first time in their 30s. We see Jim Everett as one of the young quarterbacks with a great future. We're anxious to get him back here soon as possible, but that's premature. How we mentioned will be used this year. Once said he's coming back to a great environment, but there's been a number of proven people on in this time. He's a franchise guy.
Get the best start here.
Barkowski, the Rams started that season instead of Everett. They don't come along with that often. Everett interviewed in the Lafayette, Indiana Journal Career said that his whole thing turned out to be blessing in disguise. Now I get to play for Robinson, who is a great coach for the team. They got Barkowski, who's a great quarterback, so I'm going to ensure the timetable went in and they'll play. I expect later in from Barkowski and I go with the timetable. Now I get to look for a place to buy a surfboard said Everett Nathan, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, now to the weather. Anomalous. Thank you. Vince, right now, current conditions at 5 p.m. Port, 78 at Baltimore, Washington, 74 at Martin, 75 at Aberdeen, 71 in Wilmington, Delaware, 73 out in Dover, 73 in Georgetown, Delaware, 73 in Easton, Maryland, 76 in Salisbury, Maryland, 78 in Annapolis, 77 in Meade, 81 in National in Washington, 78 in Dallas, 78 in Andrews, 81 in Gettysburg, 75 in Fredericton, Hagerstown, and 79 in Cumberland, and a couple of batches of rain showers in Baltimore and the eastern shores of Maryland and Delaware, and in the southern New Jersey here, and a couple of batches of rain showers in western Maryland there. Today's picture book at about 3:30 a.m. shows very heavy thunderstorms over eastern Nebraska an hour. Multi-layer clouds associated with an upper air feature reach from eastern Montana down to the Dakotas. National Weather Service forecast showers for tomorrow in the central Denver Rockies. And across the plains to western New York, Pennsylvania, showers extend south to Oklahoma are expected for the Texas Gulf Coast and southern Florida. So far, forecast for Baltimore and vicinity goes like this. Annapolis. Tonight, part clouds got low in the low to mid 60s. Light winds tomorrow. Part cloud and warm with a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms high 85 degrees southwest winds near 10 miles per hour. Ocean resorts continuing chance of showers tomorrow. Part cloudy and warmer with high near 85 degrees. Wind from the southwest about 10 miles per hour. Chesapeake Bay tonight. Southwest wind about 10 knots. Waves around 1 foot. Saturday, southwest winds to 10-20 knots. Waves 1 to 2 feet. Scattered showers and thunderstorms. Physically 1 mile less than times of precipitation. Extended forecast Sunday for Tuesday. Part cloudy Sunday and Monday. A chance of showers Tuesday and a cool trend. Highs in mid to upper 80s on Sunday, around 80 Monday with the lows in mid 70s on Tuesday. Lows in the upper 50s, mid 60s. Temperature about 5 to 10 degrees cool in the Maryland mountains. And now that's going to be it for the News 11 at 5:30 on this September 19th, 1960 on Friday. And stay tuned for News 11 at 6, and it starts right now.